Piql film. It was a domain name that was originally used for pop-ups for spamming your computer. And yes, that's a divot I bumped my head. 2,000 year cold storage lifespan. Barcode, QR code film. Svalbard Arctic World Archive, AWA, and other initialisms for the Vatican and such. Got to put that in the title. That'll get a bunch of freaks to show up. Freaks come out. GitHub partnering with the Illuminati or Balloon-Nati, depending on whether or not you want to look up Balloon Knot. Piql. Piql. If that sounds like a strained reasoning, let's move on. Commercial use and licensing for this technology, anybody uses the word technology, you're being vague, is property of Piql, Piql AS. Open source, free for private and research use of this archival file system using boxing-lib for boxing, I think it's called boxing barcode. This came out of nowhere, right? Well, kinda, but yeah, someone wants to copyright your archive. Does anybody remember a website that said you could put up images forever? It was called Photo Bucket, that then decided to charge everybody $300 or they were going to erase all their precious memories? 500 year to 2,000 year cold storage lifespan. 500 years ordinary temperature. Silver halide crystal coated or iron oxide powder coated. Please look up both formats used for film. 35 millimeter polyester film stock, 3 perforations for frame at 60 frames per yard approximately. And it's in 25 by 14.7 millimeter or 22 by 14 millimeter exposure format. Anything on Earth that says that it's going to be open source and doesn't tell you the exact specifications they're using on standard film stock, which appears to be primarily oriented towards black and white, but can be color. Anybody who doesn't tell you the exact specifications and makes it an open standard and makes it to where they don't own it, why would you trust them? 1950s Super Scope, 235. It was 3 perforations per frame, 35 millimeter Super Scope, 1950s. Then it was 1975's Trilent 35. Trident standing for the 3 sprocket holes. In the 1980s, it was Super 35, and you can see some movies that were put out on it. After we began to do digital editing of movies, because it finally became practical for large and now small movie makers, it became trivial to use what would be considered really lousy film formats by just fully dodge and burn exposing them using computer monitors. If you're not aware of it, film has a very good dynamic range if you want it to, and computer screens are kind of fixed at 256 to 1, whether it's black and white or color. You can add colors to it, but the brightness levels are digitally restricted to that, unless you use a different computer system. Most of us consumer-grade people, it's 256 color, or 256 brightness levels, red, green, or blue, and if you combine them, you get 24-bit data in 1 pixel. But the point is, the dynamic range is fixed. In film, you can fully take advantage of film being able to be completely black and completely see-through in the same frame with sharp edges. And you can only do that properly, really, if you do a bunch of digital editing or analog dodge and burn. Digital editing, as the digital intermediate stage, became the standard, and this standard became more popular up until digital transmissions became popular. This is also called, if you're not aware of it, DCI 4K. Yeah, it's just 4K video. You take a 4K screen, full 4K, industry standard used for editing, and use it as the image source to dump onto 35 millimeter film in a ratio that would fit into the 3 sprocket holes, and that's the same thing they're doing. Piql started their YouTube channel March 29th of 2017. 2014, they started their website sometime before Halloween. Before that, the website name was, pronounced Piql. You can imagine what it might have been used for. But anyway, its only history shows that it was used as a pop-up page to try to spam your computer. And before that, it was just a parking domain that someone bought, probably as a joke. In 2023, sometime before May 11th, Piql's YouTube channel that had been there since 2017 erased everything that it had on it except 3 videos you can find now, maybe 4 or 5, if you count the shorts, which I don't. They redacted something. The website itself just talked very vaguely about things, used a lot of flowery language. This is microfilm. This is microfiche. This has been around a lot longer than the 1950s. Storing stuff on film as just images of text or images of high-quality images of, let's say, a painting, that's called taking a camera out and taking pictures. You know that, right? But using a digital intermediate stage, which has also been around since forever, now, ever since we've had this ability, can do one more thing. You can dump information, and it's not barcode or QR code. What you do is you take advantage of the fact that any image you put up on the screen, like this picture, is just a bunch of numbers and some ones and zeros within a certain grayscale range or color range. And you could just dump a file and tell it to dump it onto the screen as a picture. This has been around for an obnoxiously long period of time. You could record audio or data onto VHS tape using what's called a VHS computer interface or a data drive interface, or Decker box, as we used to call it jokingly. It's a sci-fi thing. You'll get over it. But anyway, what does this store? An analog image can be dumped on it per frame, as usual. And you can also use more than the certain number of frames. I mean, you can do any size you want to. But it's 3 sprocket holes per frame is the standard they're using. This can also be used for what they're calling a 2D barcode. Some of you might call it QR code, whatever. Now, their statement on their website was something like 120 gigabytes per roll. Okay. Now, they didn't specify any data on it, and it was very hard to find consistently them saying it's 35 millimeter film. Also, they show images that are computer mock-ups that don't show 35 millimeter film, or at least they're trying not to show it in the normal resolution. I found a video of them showing a giant reel of film storing the data. All right, here we go. At 120 gigabytes per roll, we have 4,096 rows by 2,160 columns. That works out as 4 megapixel per frame. A specific number of bytes will be listed below because I'm a pedantic. Now that matches exactly the movie industry standard, projector standard for 24 frames per second at your local theater. DCI 4K. This is not something they invented. It's not anything different. But instead of dumping it as a video stream on screen, this would be like scanning it and using the computer interface that you can use it for to project, not on a screen, but onto film and store stuff in a much better storage format. No joke. Film stock can be made to last hundreds of years if you really work at it. But this is an estimated age. It's not really 2,000 years. If you do 2 bits per pixel, that would be 4 grayscale levels per pixel at that resolution. This would work out to the equivalent to 2,543 feet of film. That's 54,000 frames approximately. I'm rounding it off. If you do 4 bits per pixel, you have to do 16 grayscale levels, which is easy to do even with really lousy computer logic. It's just a resolution you have to dump to the film. And that works out to 27,000 frames needed, storing more data in less space. That's 1,272 feet of film. That's very near, it's below the 2,000-foot reel that you can get for a film, that used to have Star Wars, or the 1,000-foot reels that are commonly used for shifting and changing, if you Fight Club reference. Now, if you do 8-bit per pixel, that's 256 levels of gray in the film. That's the max resolution you can easily force film to do. That means every dot on that film can store a byte. That can store a letter of the alphabet, or 2 numbers packed together, or whatever. And that gets it up to being 8 megabytes per frame. And because these take up like, 25 millimeters by 14 millimeters, something like that, that's pretty good. That's about a little 1-inch picture storing 8 megabytes. That's about as good as an old style flash drive. Flash drives don't last this long, obviously, because they eventually lose the data on them. You have to plug them in every once in a while to refresh them. Some of you have forgotten to do that. And by the way, if you haven't used that thumb drive you have in your closet for 2 years, it's probably blank by now, unless it's a really good grade one. But anyway, so anyway, if you do it as 8 bit per pixel or full grayscale, which is the upper limit for consumer grade film, and if this is hardcore film and they're using lots of minced words and chemistry names, I hope it's high grade. I'll tell you what the high grade is in a minute. Then that would store in 13,000 frames, or 13.5K frames, 636 feet of film. Now that gets to be a pretty small roll. That becomes really good storage. The more grayscales you put per pixel, the higher the error and failure rate is. So you're going to have to include some error correction in the file. Now, that is where you end up with this optical media to digital file format conversion, where if you're going to pack them tight like that, with grayscales that are, full grayscale, you're going to end up having to do error checking and that sort of thing. And that would be where it would be valuable and therefore a value-added service for them to encode, encrypt, and then decrypt it. However, if it was just 2 bits per pixel, just 4 levels of gray, the likelihood of loss of data is almost non-existent, as long as it's made well and packed tightly. Don't know if you know this, there's a proper way of storing film, especially 35 millimeter film, that's used for movies. These look like 1,000-foot reels. These look like at that point, if they're going to claim that it's 120 gigabytes per roll, that would absolutely indicate that they're using 16 grayscale levels. They indicate 4, but they're probably doing 16. Now, they can store more data by doing data compression. That's something your computer can do. It makes a file take up half of the space. Easily, they could do that. So that's probably what they're doing. They're probably combining data compression, pre-compression, as I like to call it, then dumping it as an image on the screen, putting it on film, and then when you take it off the film, you just pick it up with a camera. It just has to be a 4K movie industry standard camera, which is not that hard to get a sensor for. You can just get the sensor and just hook it up to a computer. That's probably what they did. And you grab that information and spit it to RAM, and then you have the computer. At that point, it would be decoding only 16 grayscale levels, which is trivial. And it would immediately be able to figure out the borders of each pixel. It would have to oversample it to find them. It would be fine enough. So at that point, it could easily read the data and dump it as a file and then decode it. And you can look at a YouTube video they have up at the 43-second mark and look at the piece of equipment, and it is the same size as microfilm and microfiche was in the past. Is this an improvement? Is this archival grade for 2,000 years? Okay, negative film stock. Film that you get the negative from, it's the negative, can be used that way. You just do a positive negative flip in the camera or projector to do it. Next. Standard film that you use for doing slideshows, slide film, can be bought in positive or negative format that can be considered archival grade. Some people like grain structure or whatever. I want high resolution, clean quality. This archival grade film has been around since the 1950s because the Cold War happened, and this has been going on continually. This is not any different except for being the digital to analog back to digital format conversion. Is this much different than any of the other zebra codes or QR codes? Some of the QR codes have nearly the same resolution, so it's not much of a difference. And those can survive a lot more damage. My opinion of this, since they've redacted their channel's entire content before May of last year, this year, or whatever, I wonder what's going on here. And if anybody's doing any kind of buzz about it, remember the Vatican was involved. Other than that, do I believe that this is an archival storage system that would last 500 years or such? No, I don't. Film testing has shown that film, no matter what standard you use now, isn't any better. But the claim is it's using silver halide crystals, please look that up, and also iron oxide powder coating. Again, please look that up. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.